What if I told you that somewhere in California stands a house so bizarre, so impossibly confusing, that it was built specifically to trap ghosts? A mansion where staircases climb directly into ceilings, doors open onto 3-story, drops and hallways twist into dead ends for no logical reason whatsoever. This isn't the product of a mad architect or a modern art installation. This is the Winchester Mystery House, and it was built by a woman who believed she was being hunted by an army of vengeful spirits. For 38 years, construction never stopped. Not for a single day. Hammers rang out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as Sarah Winchester poured her fortune into creating the most bewildering house in human history. But why? What drove this wealthy widow to spend decades building an architectural nightmare? And are the spirits she feared still trapped within its impossible walls? I'm about to take you inside one of America's strangest mysteries, where reality bends, like the twisted corridors of this haunted mansion. Welcome to the Winchester Mystery House, where logic goes to die. To understand this house, we need to understand the woman who built it, Sarah. Lockwood Pardee was born in 1839 into a well-educated Connecticut family. She was described as petite, standing barely 5 feet tall, with auburn hair and an intelligent demeanor that caught the attention of William Wirt Winchester. William wasn't just any suitor. He was the heir to the Winchester repeating arms company fortune, the family business that had revolutionized warfare with their legendary rifles. The Winchester rifle became known as the gun that won the West, but it also earned the darker nickname that would haunt Sarah for the rest of her life. They called it the gun that killed the West because of the countless lives it claimed during the Civil War, Indian Wars, and frontier conflicts. Sarah married William in 1862, stepping into a world of immense wealth built on weapons of war. For a time, life seemed perfect. In 1866, they welcomed their daughter Annie Pardee Winchester. Sarah's joy was complete. She had everything a woman of her era could want: a loving husband, a beautiful child, and unlimited financial security. But tragedy struck with devastating swiftness. Annie fell ill with a wasting disease, possibly tuberculosis, and died just 40 days after her birth. Sarah was shattered. The loss of her infant daughter left her inconsolable, and she retreated into herself, becoming increasingly isolated and melancholy. Then, in 1881, William himself fell victim to tuberculosis. At the age of 43, he died, leaving Sarah, a 41-year-old widow, with an enormous inheritance, but no family to share it with. She inherited $20 million, equivalent to roughly $500 million today, plus a daily income of about $1,000 from Winchester rifle sales. Every single day, money flowed into her accounts from weapons that continued to kill, across America and around the world. According to legend, it was during this period of profound grief that Sarah sought the guidance of a spiritual medium in Boston. The medium, a woman named Adam Coons, delivered a chilling message that would change Sarah's life forever. She told Sarah that her family was cursed by the spirits of everyone killed by Winchester rifles. Thousands upon thousands of souls were seeking revenge against the Winchester family. The medium claimed that Annie and William had died because these vengeful spirits were targeting the Winchester bloodline, and Sarah was next. But there was hope. The medium instructed Sarah to travel west and build a house for these spirits. As long as construction never stopped, the spirits would be appeased, and Sarah would live. If the hammering ever ceased, if construction ever ended, Sarah would die. Whether this story is fact or folklore, we know that Sarah Winchester packed her belongings and moved to California in 1884. She purchased a modest 8-room farmhouse and 161 acres in San Jose's Santa Clara Valley, an area known for its sprawling agricultural lands and mild climate. What happened next defies all logic and reason. Sarah hired a team of carpenters and issued the strangest construction orders in architectural history. Work would continue 24 hours a day, every day, without exception. But this wasn't going to be a normal expansion. Sarah claimed she received nightly visitations from spirits who gave her detailed building instructions. She would hold seances in a special blue room, speaking with ghosts who demanded specific architectural features designed to confuse evil spirits. The carpenters were told to build staircases that led nowhere, doors that opened into, walls and windows that looked into other rooms instead of outside. They constructed hallways that doubled back on themselves, creating an indoor labyrinth where even Sarah needed a map to navigate her own home. Room after room was added with no overall plan, no architectural blueprint, just the nightly instructions from Sarah's ghostly visitors. For 38 years, this construction continued. Rain or shine, day or night, the sound of hammers and saws echoed through the Santa Clara Valley. Neighbors grew accustomed to the constant noise, knowing that somewhere in that growing maze of a house, Sarah Winchester was trying to save her soul. But what exactly did all this construction create? Let me take you on a tour of the most confusing house ever built. The Winchester Mystery House, as it stands today, contains 160 rooms, though some estimates suggest there may have been over 200 before the 1906 earthquake damaged portions of the structure. There are 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, 47 stairways, 47 fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens scattered throughout the 7-story mansion. But these numbers don't convey the true strangeness of the house. It's not the quantity of rooms that makes it mysterious. It's how they're connected. Let's start with the staircases, the most famous feature of the house. There are staircases that climb up to solid ceilings with no way through. Others have steps that are only 2 inches high, creating flights of 44 steps that rise just 7 feet, as if designed for someone who could barely lift their feet. One staircase has 7 flights, but rises only 9 feet in total. Another climbs upward, only to curve back down to where it started. There's a staircase that leads to a door, but when you open the door, you find yourself facing a wall. Some stairs end at windows that are several stories above the ground. The doors are equally bewildering. Doors open onto blank walls. Others open directly onto drops that would kill anyone who walked through them. There are doors in floors, doors on ceilings, and doors that are too small for an adult. Fit through. One door opens onto a kitchen sink. Another reveals a closet that's just 1 inch deep. Some doors require a skeleton key to open from one side, but can be opened by turning a simple handle from the other side. The windows present their own puzzles. Many windows look into other rooms instead of providing views of the outside world. Some windows are installed in interior walls where they serve no purpose except to confuse. Others are placed near the floor or high on walls where they're impossible to look through. There are windows with beautiful stained glass that face into dark closets. Their artistry, hidden from anyone who might appreciate it. The hallways form a maze that would challenge even the most experienced navigator. Corridors twist and turn with no apparent logic, leading visitors in circles. Some hallways are so narrow that a person must walk sideways to pass through them. Others are so low that you must crawl to continue. Dead ends appear suddenly, forcing backtracking through the maze. Some hallways have floors that slant at odd angles, creating a disorienting walking experience. The rooms themselves are studies in architectural impossibility. There are rooms with no entrances, accessible only by climbing through windows. Others have multiple entrances, but no logical connection to the rest of the house. Structure. Some rooms are enormous ballrooms with intricate parquet floors and crystal chandeliers, while others are tiny spaces barely large enough for a single person. The famous seance room, where Sarah allegedly communicated with spirits, has only one entrance but 3 exits, and the floor is made of different types of wood arranged in a complex pattern. Perhaps most unsettling are the rooms that were simply abandoned mid-construction. Half-built walls stand next to incomplete staircases, as if the workers simply vanished in the middle of their task. Throughout the house, the number 13 appears with obsessive frequency. There are 13 windows in the 13th bathroom, 13 ceiling panels in several rooms, and 13 steps on many staircases. Some say Sarah was superstitious about the number 13, while others believe it held special significance in her communications with spirits. The most disturbing feature might be the doors and stairways that lead to deadly drops. If someone unfamiliar with the house wandered at night, they could easily fall to their death. One door on the 2nd floor opens directly onto a drop to the kitchen below. Another leads to a fall that would land in the garden outside. Were these death traps intentional? Were they designed to catch unwary spirits? Or were they simply the result of chaotic, unplanned construction? The answer depends on whether you believe Sarah Winchester was a brilliant architect of supernatural defense or a grief-stricken woman slowly losing her mind. But the house holds more secrets than just its impossible architecture. Hidden throughout the mansion are symbols, codes, and mysterious details that suggest a deeper purpose. Let's explore the hidden meanings embedded in Sarah Winchester's architectural madness. Throughout the house, spider web motifs appear in stained glass windows, drain covers, and decorative elements. Some interpret these as symbols of Sarah's feeling of being caught in a web of supernatural forces. Others suggest the spider web represents the intricate trap she was building for vengeful spirits. The number sequences found throughout the house may contain coded messages. Beyond the obvious emphasis on 13, other numbers appear in patterns that some believe represent dates, ages, or spiritual significance. In the seance room, the walls are covered with symbols that don't match any known decorative style. Some researchers believe these are spiritual symbols Sarah used in her communications with ghosts. The Winchester house also contains architectural elements from different time periods and cultures, as if Sarah was incorporating designs from various spiritual traditions. There are Egyptian revival elements, Gothic details, and even some decorative choices that seem to reference occult symbolism. The servants who worked in the house reported strange phenomena that went beyond the confusing architecture. They claimed to hear footsteps in empty rooms, voices in abandoned hallways, and unexplained cold spots throughout the mansion. Some servants reported seeing shadowy figures moving through rooms, always just at the edge of their vision. Others claimed that doors would open and close on their own, and that furniture would mysteriously rearrange itself overnight. Sarah herself reportedly spoke to invisible companions during her daily walks through the house. Servants would hear her having conversations with people who weren't there. She often carried out elaborate dinner preparations for guests who never arrived, setting tables for multiple people in rooms where she would dine alone. The workers who built the house over the decades shared their own strange experiences. They reported tools that would disappear and reappear in impossible locations. Some claimed to hear hammering coming from sections of the house where no one was working. Others said their carefully measured cuts would be mysteriously altered overnight, as if invisible hands were modifying their work. The constant construction meant that workers became intimately familiar with the house's growing strangeness, yet many reported getting lost in sections they had built themselves. They would enter a room through one door and exit through another, only to find themselves in a completely different area of the house than they expected. But perhaps the most chilling reports came from visitors who spent nights in the house. During Sarah's lifetime, guests described being awakened by the sound of invisible people walking in the hallways, doors slamming shut on empty rooms, and piano music playing from the ballroom when no one was at the piano. Some visitors reported feeling constantly watched, as if unseen eyes were following their every movement through the maze-like corridors. These experiences weren't limited to nighttime. Daytime visitors also reported supernatural encounters, suggesting that if spirits inhabited the house, they were active around the clock. The question remains, was Sarah Winchester a master of supernatural architecture, or was the house simply a physical manifestation of her psychological state? Modern psychology offers some compelling explanations for Sarah's behavior that don't require supernatural intervention. Sarah had experienced profound trauma with the deaths of her infant daughter and husband. In the Victorian era, there were few resources for processing grief, especially trauma of this magnitude. The guilt Sarah may have felt about her family's wealth coming from weapons could have created an overwhelming psychological burden. Every day, she received income from Winchester rifle sales, a constant reminder that her comfortable life was built on instruments of death. Some psychologists suggest that the continuous construction served as a form of therapy, giving Sarah a sense of purpose and control in a life that had been marked by loss and helplessness. The elaborate nature of the construction, with its focus on confusing layouts, might have been Sarah's way of creating a physical space that matched her internal emotional confusion. The obsession with the number 13, the symbols, and the claims of spiritual communication could all be interpreted as manifestations of obsessive-compulsive disorder, triggered by extreme grief. However, this psychological explanation doesn't account for all the strange phenomena reported by others in the house. If Sarah was simply working through her grief, why did servants and visitors report their own supernatural experiences? Were these accounts influenced by suggestion and the strange atmosphere of the house, or was something genuinely paranormal occurring? The truth might lie somewhere between psychology and the supernatural. Perhaps Sarah's profound grief and guilt created a psychological state that made her unusually sensitive to spiritual phenomena. Or perhaps her continuous construction and maze-like architecture did indeed succeed in trapping something within the walls of her bizarre mansion. To understand the full scope of the Winchester Mystery House, we need to examine what happened during one of the most significant events in its history. On April 18, 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake struck Northern California with devastating force. The earthquake lasted less than a minute, but its impact on the Winchester house was profound and, according to some accounts, deeply meaningful to Sarah. The mansion's upper floors, including the famous 7-story tower that Sarah used as her sleeping quarters, collapsed completely. Rooms that had taken years to build were destroyed in seconds. The elaborate tower, where Sarah conducted many of her seances, was reduced to a pile of wood and debris. Sarah was trapped in her bedroom during the earthquake, locked in by debris and fallen timber. It took several hours for servants to locate and rescue her. When she was finally freed, Sarah reportedly declared that the earthquake was a sign from the spirits. The good spirits had been warning her about the evil spirits' growing anger. She immediately ordered the damaged sections of the house to be boarded up rather than repaired. These rooms, including the entire tower section, were sealed and never reopened. Sarah believed that the earthquake had been caused by evil spirits breaking through her carefully constructed defenses, and she responded by changing her building strategy entirely. After 1906, the construction continued, but with a new focus. Sarah began building even more confusing layouts, with additional dead ends, false doors, and impossible pathways. The post-earthquake construction seems almost frantic compared to the earlier work, as if Sarah was racing against time to rebuild her supernatural defenses. Some of the house's most bewildering features date from this period, including some of the most dangerous dead-end staircases and drop-off doors. The earthquake also marked a change in Sarah's personal behavior. Already reclusive, she became even more isolated, rarely venturing outside the house and conducting all business through intermediaries. She began sleeping in a different bedroom each night, believing that this would make it impossible for evil spirits to locate her while she was vulnerable. The servants reported that after the earthquake, the supernatural phenomena in the house intensified. More voices, more unexplained sounds, more mysterious movement of objects. Whether this was due to Sarah's heightened anxiety affecting the household atmosphere, or whether the earthquake had indeed disturbed something supernatural, remains a matter of interpretation. What's certain is that the earthquake changed the character of both Sarah and her house, adding a sense of urgency and desperation to the ongoing construction project. The house continued to grow, but now it seemed less like a grand architectural experiment and more like a frantic attempt to stay one step ahead of supernatural vengeance. As we move deeper into the 20th century, Sarah Winchester aged but never wavered in her commitment to continuous construction. For 38 years, the building never stopped. Through economic downturns, changes in architectural fashion, and the passing of decades, the sound of hammers continued day and night. By this time, Sarah's daily routine had become as ritualized as the construction itself. She would wake early and spend hours in her seance room, allegedly receiving instructions from spirits about the day's building projects. She would then tour the construction sites, speaking with invisible companions and making detailed notes about modifications to the work. Sarah employed a constant crew of between 10 and 20 carpenters, paying them extremely well for their unusual work. Many of these men worked for her for decades, becoming experts at building impossible architecture. The cost of this continuous construction was enormous. Sarah was spending approximately $1,000 per day on building expenses, equivalent to about $30,000 daily in today's money. But her Winchester rifle inheritance provided a steady income that easily covered these costs, ensuring that the work could continue indefinitely. As the house grew larger and more complex, even Sarah needed assistance navigating her own creation. She carried a map of the house and wore a special ring that supposedly helped her communicate with helpful spirits who could guide her through the maze. The servants learned to navigate by memorizing specific routes between commonly used rooms, avoiding areas of the house that were too confusing or dangerous. Some sections of the house became completely abandoned, accessible but never visited because the routes to reach them were too complicated to remember. These forgotten rooms accumulated dust and mystery, becoming sealed time, capsules of Sarah's earlier building phases. The house developed its own ecosystem of mysteries. Rooms that were built for specific purposes were abandoned half-finished when Sarah received new spiritual instructions. Staircases were built to connect specific rooms, only to be blocked off when Sarah decided the connection might allow evil spirits to travel too easily through the house. The mansion became a physical record of decades of supernatural communication, each confusing feature representing a specific instruction from Sarah's spirit guides. But this extraordinary architectural experiment was approaching its end. Sarah Winchester was aging, and despite her belief that continuous construction would keep her alive, time was catching up with her. On September 5, 1922, Sarah Winchester died peacefully in her sleep at the age of 82. She had lived for 38 years in her maze-like mansion, overseeing construction that created one of the most unique buildings in human history. When she died, the hammering stopped for the first time since 1884. After 38 years of continuous construction, the Winchester Mystery House finally fell silent. The workers left their tools exactly where they were at the moment of Sarah's death, creating a preserved snapshot of construction in progress. Nails driven halfway into boards remain exactly as they were left. Half-built rooms stand as monuments to interrupted work. Some say this proves that Sarah's death was indeed connected to the stopping of construction, exactly as the medium had predicted decades earlier. Others argue that Sarah simply lived to an advanced age, despite the stresses of her unusual lifestyle, and the timing was purely coincidental. Sarah left behind a house containing an estimated 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, and 160 rooms, though the exact count remains disputed because parts of the house are too dangerous or confusing to fully explore. Her will specified that the house should be sold, but finding a buyer for such an unusual property proved challenging. The house eventually became a tourist attraction, allowing the public to experience Sarah Winchester's architectural mystery firsthand. But what happened to the spirits that Sarah spent decades trying to appease? According to many visitors and employees, they never left. The Winchester Mystery House today operates as a tourist attraction, offering guided tours through selected portions of the mansion. But even with guided tours and safety ropes, visitors regularly report supernatural experiences that echo the phenomena described during Sarah's lifetime. Tour guides, who know the house better than anyone, report hearing footsteps in rooms they know are empty. They describe cold spots that move through rooms, voices calling from hallways where no one is present, and the sensation of being followed by invisible companions. Visitors frequently report seeing figures in their peripheral vision, people who vanish when looked at directly. Cameras malfunction in specific rooms, and electronic devices drain batteries at impossible rates in certain areas of the house. Some visitors report feeling dizzy or disoriented in ways that can't be explained by the confusing architecture alone. The seance room, where Sarah conducted her nightly communications with spirits, is particularly active. Visitors report feeling sudden temperature changes and hearing whispered conversations. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sound of hammering coming from sections of the house where no construction is taking place. Could this be the ghostly continuation of the work that stopped when Sarah died? Spirits still trying to complete their supernatural architectural project. The ballroom, with its beautiful parquet floors and crystal chandeliers, is another hotspot for paranormal activity. Visitors and staff report hearing music playing when the room is empty, as if invisible. Musicians are performing for an audience of ghosts. Some people claim to see couples dancing in the ballroom, figures that vanish when approached but can be observed from a distance. The most disturbing reports come from the sealed sections of the house, the rooms, that were damaged in the 1906 earthquake and boarded up by Sarah's orders. These areas, which haven't been opened in over a century, supposedly emanate sounds of activity, footsteps, voices, and even construction noise. Modern paranormal investigators have studied the house extensively using electronic equipment to detect temperature changes, electromagnetic fluctuations, and audio anomalies. Many investigations have recorded unexplained voices, captured temperature drops of 20 degrees or more in specific rooms, and detected electromagnetic signatures that suggest some form of energy presence. Skeptics argue that the house's unusual construction creates acoustic effects that could explain the mysterious sounds. The maze-like layout might channel sounds from other parts of the house in now unexpected ways, creating the illusion of activity in empty rooms. The psychological impact of the house's confusing architecture could make visitors more susceptible to suggestion and more likely to interpret normal phenomena as supernatural. However, the consistency of reports across decades of visitors, including people who weren't aware of the house's reputation, suggests that something more than suggestion might be at work. Whether supernatural or not, the Winchester Mystery House continues to affect people in profound ways, creating experiences that visitors remember for the rest of their lives. Modern research into the Winchester Mystery House has revealed fascinating details about both the construction process and Sarah Winchester herself. Architectural experts who have studied the house note that despite its confusing layout, the construction quality is excellent throughout. The joinery, the finish work, and the attention to detail demonstrate that Sarah employed skilled craftsmen and insisted on high-quality materials and workmanship. This suggests that the confusing features of the house were intentional design choices rather than the result of poor planning or construction. Historical researchers have also discovered that Sarah Winchester was far more accomplished than the grieving widow image suggests. She was highly educated, spoke multiple languages, and had a keen interest in architecture and construction techniques. Sarah held patents for several inventions, including improved window sash locks, and she was actively involved in the technical aspects of building her house. This evidence suggests that Sarah was not a victim of her grief, but rather an intelligent woman who may have had very specific reasons for building her house the way she did. Some researchers propose that the house was actually an elaborate architectural experiment, a three-dimensional puzzle that Sarah created to challenge conventional ideas about space and movement. Others suggest that Sarah may have been influenced by the spiritual and occult movements that were popular during her lifetime, incorporating symbolic elements into her architecture. The Victorian era was a time of intense interest in spiritualism, seances, and communication with the dead, particularly after the massive casualties of the Civil War. Sarah's alleged spiritual communications would have been considered unusual, but not completely outside social norms for her time period. Recent archaeological investigations of the house grounds have uncovered evidence of even more extensive construction than previously known. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed foundations for buildings that were never completed, suggesting that Sarah's building plans were even more ambitious than the existing house indicates. Some of these underground foundations form patterns that don't correspond to any known architectural style, adding another layer to the mystery of Sarah's intentions. Advanced 3D mapping of the existing house has revealed hidden spaces and connections that weren't known to exist, including sealed passages that may contain rooms that haven't been opened since Sarah's death. These discoveries suggest that the Winchester Mystery House may still be hiding secrets that could provide new insights into Sarah Winchester's true motivations. But perhaps the most significant modern research involves the psychological and social context of Sarah's time period. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were periods of massive social change, industrialization, and technological advancement. Sarah's generation witnessed the transformation of America from an agricultural society to an industrial power, with all the social disruption that such changes bring. The Winchester Rifle Company was part of this industrial transformation, and Sarah may have been grappling with the moral implications of her family's role in this changing world. Some historians suggest that Sarah's house was a physical manifestation of the psychological complexity of living with inherited wealth built on weapons of war. The maze-like structure might represent the moral confusion she felt about her position in society trapped between comfort and conscience. This interpretation doesn't require supernatural explanations, but still acknowledges the profound psychological forces that drove Sarah to create her architectural masterpiece. Whatever the ultimate explanation, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a testament to one woman's extraordinary response to trauma, wealth, and mortality. But the Winchester Mystery House represents more than just one woman's unusual response to grief and guilt. It has become a cultural phenomenon that speaks to deeper human fears and fascinations. The house taps into primal fears about being lost, trapped, or pursued by invisible forces. Its maze-like structure creates an environment where normal spatial relationships don't apply. Visitors often report feeling claustrophobic or disoriented, even in large, well-lit rooms, suggesting that the psychological impact of the architecture goes beyond its supernatural reputation. The house also represents the ultimate haunted house fantasy, a real location where the boundary between reality and nightmare seems permeable. Unlike fictional haunted houses, the Winchester Mystery House was actually inhabited by someone who believed in its supernatural purpose, giving it an authenticity that fictional locations can't match. The story of Sarah Winchester has inspired countless books, movies, and television shows, each offering different interpretations of her motivations and experiences. Some portray her as a tragic figure, driven to madness by grief and guilt. Present her as a hero, fighting against supernatural forces to protect the world from vengeful spirits. More recent interpretations have focused on Sarah as an early feminist figure, a woman who used her wealth and independence to create something entirely unique on her own terms. This view sees the house not as the product of madness or supernatural communication, but as an artistic statement by a woman who refused to conform to social expectations. The Winchester Mystery House has also influenced architecture and design in unexpected ways. Some modern architects cite the house as an inspiration for non-linear design, buildings that prioritize experience and emotion over pure functionality. The concept of mystery architecture has gained followers among designers who want to create spaces that surprise and disorient users in positive ways. Video game designers frequently reference the Winchester House when creating virtual environments that are meant to confuse and challenge players. The house has become a template for how to create physical spaces that feel otherworldly and impossible. In popular culture, the Winchester Mystery House has become synonymous with the idea that grief and guilt can manifest in physical form. It represents the notion that our internal psychological states can become so powerful that they reshape the external world around us. This metaphorical power helps explain why the house continues to fascinate people. More than a century after Sarah's death, the house serves as a physical monument to the human capacity for both creativity and self-destruction, showing how the same impulses that drive artistic achievement can also lead to obsessive behavior. But beyond its cultural significance, the Winchester Mystery House raises profound questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the possibility of life after death. If the supernatural phenomena reported at the house are genuine, what does this tell you as about the relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds? Could Sarah Winchester have actually succeeded in creating a structure that exists partially in our world and partially in some other dimension? Or do the reported phenomena represent something even more interesting? The power of human intention and belief to create lasting effects on physical spaces? Some researchers suggest that places can become imprinted with the emotions and intentions of the people who live there, creating environments that continue to affect visitors long after the original inhabitants are gone. This concept doesn't require belief in traditional ghosts or spirits, but it does suggest That consciousness might have effects on the physical world that we don't fully understand. The Winchester Mystery House could be seen as a laboratory where one person's intense psychological state was allowed to manifest in architectural form for nearly 4 decades. If this interpretation is correct, then the house represents something unique in human history, a physical structure that serves as a 3-dimensional record of one person's internal psychological journey. Every confusing hallway, every impossible staircase, every door that opens onto emptiness might represent a specific moment in Sarah's ongoing dialogue with grief, guilt, and mortality. The house becomes not just a building, but an autobiography written in wood and stone, a physical manifestation of a mind trying to make sense of senseless loss. This perspective makes the Winchester Mystery House even more remarkable, because it suggests that Sarah Winchester succeeded in creating something that transcends normal architecture. She built a structure that communicates emotional and psychological states across time, allowing visitors more than a century later to experience something of what she felt during her decades of construction. But let's explore another aspect of the Winchester Mystery House that often gets overlooked: its role as a technological marvel of its time. When Sarah began construction in 1884, most houses were built using traditional methods that had remained largely unchanged for centuries. The Winchester House incorporated cutting-edge technology for its era, including gas, lighting, steam heating, and indoor plumbing throughout its many rooms. Sarah installed an intercommunication system that allowed her to communicate with servants in different parts of the house, and she had one of the first residential elevators installed. In California, the house featured multiple hot water systems, modern bathroom facilities, and even some of the earliest examples of residential central heating. Some researchers suggest that Sarah's interest in modern technology extended to her alleged spiritual communications. The Victorian era was a time when people were trying to understand electricity, radio, waves, and other invisible forces that science was just beginning to explain. It's possible that Sarah viewed spiritual communication as another form of technology that could be harnessed and used for practical purposes. Her seance room was equipped with special acoustic features that might have been designed to amplify subtle sounds or create specific resonance effects. Some of the mysterious architectural features of the house might have been early attempts at creating what we would now recognize as acoustic or electromagnetic phenomena. The placement of certain rooms, the materials used in specific walls, and the complex geometry of the house's layout might all have been designed to create specific physical effects. Modern physicists who have studied the house note that some of its features could theoretically create unusual electromagnetic fields or acoustic resonances. Whether Sarah understood these principles scientifically or discovered them through trial and error, the house demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how architectural design can affect human perception and experience. This technological interpretation of the Winchester Mystery House suggests that Sarah may have been conducting a kind of early research into environmental psychology and the effects of space on consciousness. The confusing layout, the unusual proportions of rooms and hallways, and the strategic placement of windows and doors might all have been designed to create specific psychological states in people who entered the house. If this interpretation is correct, then Sarah Winchester was far ahead of her time, experimenting with concepts that wouldn't be formally studied until decades later. The house could be seen as an early example of what we now call neuroarchitecture, the study of how built environments affect brain function and behavior. But whether viewed as supernatural communication, psychological expression, or architectural experimentation, the Winchester Mystery House remains one of the most unique buildings ever created. Let's examine some of the specific rooms and features that make the house so remarkable, and consider what they might tell us about Sarah Winchester's true intentions. The Blue Room, where Sarah conducted her nightly seances, is perhaps the most important space in the entire house. This room is accessible through 3 different entrances, but legend says that Sarah would enter through one door and leave through another, never using the same entrance twice in a row. The floor of the Blue Room is made from 6 different types of wood arranged in an intricate pattern that might represent some form of spiritual or mystical symbol. The walls are painted in a distinctive blue that was believed to ward off evil spirits, and the room contains built-in cabinets that may have held Sarah's spiritual communication tools. The ceiling of the Blue Room is lower than most other rooms in the house, creating an intimate, enclosed feeling that would be conducive to meditation or spiritual practice. The Grand Ballroom represents another fascinating aspect of Sarah's architectural vision. This enormous room features beautiful parquet floors, ornate chandeliers, and elegant proportions. But the ballroom was reportedly never used for entertaining. Sarah had no social life and rarely invited guests to the house. Some suggest that the ballroom was built for the spirits themselves, a grand space where ghostly gatherings could take place. Others believe that Sarah built the ballroom as a reminder of the social life she had given up when she devoted herself to appeasing spirits. The room might represent her sacrifice, a beautiful space that exists but remains forever empty, like the social connections she abandoned. The Daisy bedroom showcases Sarah's attention to artistic detail and her possible use of symbolism in the house's decoration. Every surface in this room is decorated with daisies, carved wooden daisies, stained glass daisies, painted daisies, and daisy-patterned wallpaper. Daisies are often associated with innocence and purity, and some interpret this room as a shrine to Sarah's daughter Annie, who died in infancy. The obsessive repetition of the daisy motif suggests a level of grief and longing that goes beyond normal decoration. The room becomes a 3-dimensional prayer, a space dedicated to preserving the memory of innocence lost. The switchback staircase is one of the house's most famous architectural impossibilities, a stairway that turns back on itself 7 times while rising only 9 feet. The steps are only 2 inches high, making it possible to climb them without lifting your feet very much. Some say this staircase was designed for Sarah's arthritis, allowing her to move between floors despite physical limitations. Others believe it was built to confuse spirits, creating a pathway that would tire and disorient any ghost trying to follow Sarah through the house. The staircase might also represent Sarah's spiritual journey, a long, winding path that requires patience and persistence to navigate. The door to nowhere, which opens onto a steep drop from the 2nd floor, is perhaps the most dangerous feature of the house. This door could easily kill someone who opened it, expecting to find a hallway or room beyond. Was this a trap for unwary spirits, or simply the result of unplanned construction that was never properly finished? The door might represent the ultimate test of spiritual communication. Only someone guided by helpful spirits would know not to open it. Alternatively, it could symbolize the thin line between life and death that Sarah felt she was walking every day of her life in the house. The window in the floor represents another architectural impossibility, a window that looks down into the room below rather than outside. This window serves no practical purpose, but creates an unsettling effect for anyone who discovers it. Some interpret this as Sarah's way of keeping watch on different parts of her house, maintaining surveillance over multiple levels simultaneously. Others see it as a symbol of Sarah's altered perspective on reality, her ability to see things from angles that normal people couldn't imagine. The wine cellar, carved directly into the California hillside beneath the house, contains thousands of bottles of wine that Sarah never drank. The cellar also features a hidden room that was discovered only recently, containing items that might provide clues about Sarah's true motivations. Some of these items include books on architecture, spiritual communication, and even some early psychological texts suggesting that Sarah was more educated about her unusual project than many people realized. Each room in the Winchester Mystery House tells part of a larger story, but the complete narrative remains as elusive as the spirits Sarah claimed to be housing. What emerges from a study of the individual spaces is a portrait of a woman engaged in a complex, decades-long project that combined grief processing, spiritual exploration, architectural experimentation, and perhaps genuine supernatural communication. Whether we interpret Sarah Winchester as a grieving widow, a spiritual pioneer, an architectural innovator, or some combination of all three, her house stands as a testament to human determination and creativity. But the story of the Winchester Mystery House doesn't end with Sarah's death in 1922. The house has continued to evolve and reveal new mysteries throughout the century. Since construction stopped, in the decades following Sarah's death, caretakers and visitors have discovered rooms that were sealed and forgotten, containing items that provide new insights into Sarah's life and motivations. Some of these discoveries include personal letters, architectural drawings, and records of Sarah's communications with the construction workers. These documents reveal a woman who was far more organized and methodical in her building project than the popular image of a grief-mad widow would suggest. Sarah kept detailed records of construction costs, worker schedules, and architectural modifications, suggesting that her project was carefully planned rather than chaotic. Modern restoration efforts have also revealed construction techniques and materials that were advanced for their time, further evidence of Sarah's sophisticated approach to building. The house has been studied by architects, historians, psychologists, and paranormal researchers, each discipline offering different perspectives on Sarah's remarkable creation. Structural engineers have marveled at the house's ability to survive multiple earthquakes despite its unusual design. The building techniques used throughout the house demonstrate a deep understanding of California's seismic activity and the need for flexible construction. This technical sophistication contradicts the idea that Sarah was building randomly, based on spiritual instructions. Instead, it suggests that she was incorporating practical engineering knowledge into her supernatural architectural project. Art historians have analyzed the decorative elements throughout the house, noting influences from multiple artistic movements and cultural traditions. The house contains elements of Victorian Gothic, arts and crafts, and even some early modernist features, suggesting that Sarah was aware of contemporary architectural trends. Some of the decorative motifs appear to be original designs that don't correspond to any known artistic movement, indicating that Sarah may have been creating her own symbolic language. Acoustic specialists have studied the unusual sound properties of various rooms, finding that some spaces create echoes, reverberations, or sound distortions that could contribute to supernatural experiences. Whether these acoustic effects were intentionally designed or accidental byproducts of the unusual construction, they help explain why the house has such a powerful psychological impact on visitors. The Winchester Mystery House has also become a case study in how legends and folklore develop around unusual places. Many of the most dramatic stories about Sarah and her house were created years after her death, embellished by tour guides and writers looking to create more compelling narratives. Separating fact from fiction in the Winchester story requires careful historical research, and some of the most popular tales about the house turn out to be later additions to the legend. However, even when the folklore is stripped away, the basic facts of Sarah Winchester's life and her extraordinary building project remain remarkable enough to capture the imagination. The house continues to attract visitors from around the world, each bringing their own interpretations and expectations to the experience. Some come looking for ghosts and supernatural phenomena. Others are interested in the architectural curiosities and historical significance. Many visitors are drawn by the human story behind the house, the tale of a woman who responded to personal tragedy by creating something unprecedented. Regardless of what draws people to the Winchester Mystery House, most leave with a sense that they've experienced something that challenges their understanding of what's possible. The house forces visitors to question their assumptions about architecture, reality, and the relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds. In our modern era of rational materialism, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a reminder that human experience includes elements that can't be easily explained or categorized. Whether those elements are supernatural, psychological, or simply the result of one person's extraordinary creativity, they continue to affect people who encounter them. As we conclude our journey through the Winchester Mystery House, we're left with more questions than answers, which is perhaps exactly what Sarah Winchester intended. Did Sarah Winchester succeed in her alleged goal of appeasing vengeful spirits through continuous construction and confusing architecture? The fact that she lived to age 82 in an era when life expectancy was much shorter suggests that whatever she was doing, it wasn't harmful to her health. Whether her longevity was due to spiritual protection, good genetics, excellent medical care, or simply the physical and mental stimulation of her building project remains an open question. Did the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles actually communicate with Sarah, providing instructions for her architectural project? While we can't prove supernatural communication occurred, we also can't explain all the reported phenomena at the house through conventional means. The consistency of supernatural reports across more than a century suggests that something unusual continues to occur at the house, whether spiritual or otherwise. Was Sarah Winchester a genius architect who created a revolutionary approach to building design, or was she a grieving woman whose psychological state manifested in physical form? The evidence supports both interpretations. Sarah demonstrated remarkable architectural knowledge and innovation, while also clearly being motivated by profound emotional and spiritual concerns. Perhaps the most accurate understanding recognizes that Sarah was both psychologically complex and architecturally sophisticated, creating a building that serves multiple purposes simultaneously. What can the Winchester Mystery House teach us about grief, creativity, and the human response to trauma? Sarah's story suggests that given sufficient resources and freedom, people can transform even the most devastating experiences into something meaningful and lasting. Her house demonstrates that creativity can emerge from pain, and that the process of making something can be as important as the finished product. The continuous construction that defined Sarah's life might represent the ongoing nature of grief processing, the way that loss continues to shape us long after the initial trauma. What does the Winchester Mystery House tell us about the relationship between belief and reality? Whether or not spirits actually communicated with Sarah, her belief in that communication created something real and lasting in the physical world. The house stands as proof that human consciousness, imagination, and will can manifest in ways that affect others across time and space. Sarah's beliefs, whether accurate or mistaken, generated a building that continues to challenge and inspire people more than a century later. In the end, the Winchester Mystery House defies simple categorization or explanation. It exists in the borderland between architecture and art, between history and legend, between the rational and the inexplicable. The house serves as a physical monument to the complexity of human experience, reminding us that people are capable of creating things that transcend normal understanding. Sarah Winchester took her grief, her guilt, her wealth, and her beliefs and transformed them into something that has never been duplicated. Whether you interpret her creation as supernatural communication, psychological expression, architectural innovation, or artistic statement, the Winchester Mystery House represents human creativity at its most extraordinary. The house challenges us to expand our definitions of what's possible, what's meaningful, and what deserves to be preserved and studied. More than 140 years after construction began, the Winchester Mystery House continues to grow and evolve, not through physical construction, but through the interpretations and experiences of each new generation of visitors. Each person who walks through its impossible corridors adds their own layer to the mystery, contributing to a legend that becomes richer and more complex with time. The house that Sarah built to confuse spirits has succeeded in confusing it, captivating human visitors, creating exactly the kind of lasting impact that she might have hoped for. Today, as we face our own challenges with grief, trauma, and the search for meaning, Sarah Winchester's story offers a unique perspective on how one person can transform personal pain into something that touches the lives of countless others. The Winchester Mystery House reminds us that there are no standard responses to life's greatest challenges, and that sometimes the most powerful healing comes from creating something entirely new and unprecedented. Whether Sarah Winchester was communicating with spirits, processing grief, conducting architectural experiments, or simply following her own unique vision, she succeeded in creating something that continues to inspire wonder more than a century later. In a world that often seems to have lost its sense of mystery, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a testament to the power of human imagination and determination. It reminds us that reality is stranger and more malleable than we often assume, and that one person with sufficient will and resources can create something that changes how we understand the world. The hammering may have stopped when Sarah Winchester died in 1922, but the house she built continues to work its magic on everyone who encounters it. The spirits she sought to appease may have been real, or they may have been projections of her own psychological needs, but the mystery she created is undeniably authentic. As we leave the Winchester Mystery House behind, we carry with us the questions it raises about the nature of reality, the power of belief, and the extraordinary things that humans can accomplish when they refuse to accept conventional limitations. The house that was built to confuse spirits has succeeded in something even more remarkable. It has created a lasting mystery that continues to challenge and inspire human understanding more than a century after its creator's death. Sarah Winchester may have built her house for the dead, but she created something that very much lives on, growing stronger and more meaningful with each passing year. In the end, perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all: how one woman's response to personal tragedy became a gift to the world, a place where the impossible seems possible, and where questions matter more than answers. The Winchester Mystery House stands waiting for your visit, ready to challenge your assumptions and expand your understanding of what one determined person can accomplish. The spirit Sarah Winchester built it for may still be wandering its impossible corridors, but the mystery she created belongs to all of us. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of America's most fascinating architectural mysteries. Remember to subscribe for more explorations of the strange, the unexplained, and the utterly remarkable stories that shape our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and never stop looking for the mysteries that surround us every day. The Winchester Mystery House proves that sometimes the most incredible stories are the ones that actually happened.